I have to read 210 pages a day of this. And the way that she's talked about him, he deserves to be in the bin. The end of that book was a roller coaster. So I've got myself into a little bit of a pickle because I have the live show for The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne this coming Sunday, and I am 11 pages into it on Friday almost afternoon. So I have my work cut out for me. I have to read 210 pages a day of this to have it done for the live show, and my attendance is non-negotiable given that it is my book club. I have been reading a lot recently though. I just finished wrapping up the Fairy Epic Fantasy subscription vlog, and for the last 4 days actually, I've read 200 pages a day. So I believe that I can do it, but also the fact that I'm working to a deadline, it always kills my motivation. I'm not alone in that, right? Does it do that for you guys as well? If I have a deadline to do something, I always manage it, but I drag my feet along the way. I'm really excited to read this one though. It is the second book in the Bloodsworn saga, which is John Gwynne's epic fantasy inspired by Norse mythology. In book one, we were introduced to 3 core characters that all get wrapped up in this larger plot involving the gods of this world. At this point, I still can't give you guys a very good synopsis of this series because for the longest time in book one, all 3 of those perspectives that we follow are separate. They're heading in different directions, and it's actually only at the very end of book one that you find out how they're all related. They're still not really at a point where they're all kind of tied together, but you do figure out like a commonality between them. And we also have like a big event that happens at the end of book one, which is going to dramatically impact the world, which obviously our character is going to have to navigate going into book 2. Book 1 was really good with the setup. I really like our main character, or one of our main characters, of Orca in here, who is a warrior who has retired. She lives just outside of her closest town with her husband and their child. After living as a warrior for so long, she wants a little bit more of a relaxed life, but her life is very quickly thrown into turmoil, and she has to go on this big epic quest to rescue her son and kind of like harness this part of herself that she's left behind. We also have a character who is a thrall. His sister was killed, and he's looking for a witch that will perform a ritual that will allow him to see his sister's last moments so that he can avenge her. But along the way, he kind of finds himself a found family, and it makes him reevaluate his goals and whether revenge is the most important thing to him, or whether he has other things that he could maybe be doing with his life. And then our last perspective is the one that I actually didn't like very much. It's Elvar. Honestly, like, her perspective really was not doing it for me in book 1. But she is part of this band of warriors, and I actually really don't remember what their main purpose was in book 1, but they're definitely on the more magical trackline of this story. We find out a lot more about the magic of the world through Elvar's perspective. Hoping that I get along with her perspective a little bit more in book 2, because she really did lose me for a big part of her narrative in book 1. But given that I kind of now have a better idea of where this series is going and how everyone's interconnected and what maybe part of the main conflict that we're gonna overcome is, I'm a lot more enthusiastic about book 2. And I know a lot of people really love this series. At this point, my favorite John Gwynne series is still The Faithful and the Fallen, where the pacing is actually a lot slower than it is in the Of Blood and Bone series and also the Bloodsworn saga. But I do know that this one is also loved by a lot of people, so I'm hoping that it kind of wins me over as well. So I really need to get some reading in because we are approaching 29 hours until the live show tomorrow, and I still have around 500 pages of this book left. I did make a significant dent in it yesterday. I didn't quite make the 200 page mark. I'm on page 172, but you know, that isn't bad. considering that I did have a live show last night, and I also spent the rest of my evening sorting out my video for Sunday, which was causing me a little bit of trouble, and I ended up wrapping that up this morning with the thumbnail and stuff. You know, progress is progress, but we need to be making a little bit more. So I've made myself a cup of tea so that I can get settled in. The problem is though, is that I'm making a steak pie. I'm making a steak and ale pie for dinner tonight, and I'm making the filling from scratch, not the pastry. That seems like a lot. Pastry and filling. I'm just going to make the filling from scratch, but it's like a 2-hour process. So I'm going to have to start that in like 30 minutes if I want to eat at around 6. And I also need to go out and get some pastry because I forgot when we did our shop. So maybe around all of that, I'll just try and see how much of this I can get through before dinner. I am currently watching The Deal, which I'm really enjoying, so I definitely want to do some more of that tonight as well. So around all of that, we'll maybe see how much of this we can read before dinner. But I am so far enjoying this one. We've had 2 new perspectives added to the narrative. Something that John Gwynne consistently does actually is gives us the perspective of the antagonist characters, usually in book 2. Malice was a little bit different because Malice started off with a large cast of characters, but then the Blood and Bone series and also the Bloodsworn saga have both started with a much smaller cast than Malice, and then in every book perspectives are added, and the 2 perspectives that we've got in this one are both people who, based on the events of book 1, we're not supposed to like. Now, John Gwynne typically doesn't include these perspectives to change your mind about them or make them a hero. They are still the villains of the story, but it tends to be a really interesting perspective because you're getting the opinions and the viewpoint of like the other side of the struggle that we're facing. So I'm enjoying those perspectives because they're a little bit different, but also the really nice thing about this series is that the majority of the characters, especially in book 1, nobody was in the same location. They're all following separate paths. So every perspective is given different information as opposed to giving 2 sides of the same coin with characters that are in the same location. I'm still loving Orca. I do think that Orca is going to be my favorite character, and we learned a little bit of new information about her at the end of book 1 that it was like at the very, very end. So we're developing on it in book 2. And I said when I was reading book 1 in this series that the difference between this and The Faithful and the Fallen in terms of the world is that this is already magical. There's already magic in this world, but the level of magic still increases throughout it. And we already have a increase in that in this book in comparison to book 1 that I am really enjoying because it's like leaning into the mythology and the history of the world. I really like the audio narrator on this one as well because I have been immersive reading everything recently. I am trying to increase my attention span, reduce my anxiety through losing less time mindlessly scrolling. And I am still mindlessly scrolling a little bit. Kind of the perils of posting on social media is that requires you to be on social media. So it's unavoidable for me to some extent, but I'm trying to stop myself spending hours in the evening. Like after dinner, I'll just scroll through reels on my phone instead of like getting up and doing something and making use of my time. And big source of anxiety for me in general is always feeling like I'm not doing enough or I don't have time for anything, like achieving my to-do list and feeling like time is slipping away, but then also getting frustrated that I don't have time to do the things that I want to do. And realistically, if I got rid of all of this time in between activities I was scrolling on my phone, then I'd have a lot more time to do the things that I want to do. And something that does also take me a long time is reading. I'm not the fastest reader, and part of that is because I get distracted so easily. I'll get distracted by a thought and I'll want to pick my phone up and Google something, or I'll just read a chapter and then get up and do something. So listening to the audiobook at the same time is really great to keep me locked in, because as soon as I have that thought that would trigger me to pick up my phone, I'm like, I can't pick up my phone, I'm reading. Like the audiobook is getting away from me, I need to pay attention. So that has really kept me focused over the last week or so, especially during the Fairly Epic Fantasy vlog. And it's something I actually discovered when I did that video last year that was trying out various focus techniques recommended by you guys. It's something that definitely kind of maximized the amount that I read. And it's not that I want to read more necessarily, although that is nice. I more want to make better use of my time so that the time that I spend reading, I'm actually spending reading, as opposed to giving into all of these various irritating distractions. currently sprinting with my patrons. I've been sprinting for just over 3 hours now. I had to hold an emergency session because we had a dire situation on our hands. When I got up this morning, I was this far into the book. I was on page 347 out of 630. I am now, thankfully, 558 pages in. I'm in the final stretch with less than 5 hours to go until my live show. So I have about 75 pages left, I think. And I am still consistently enjoying this one more than I did book one. A lot of the perspectives that I wasn't as invested in book one, I feel like have grown on me throughout this one. Elva, as I said, I couldn't even give you a concise breakdown of what she was up to in book one because her perspective was my least favorite. It had a lot of the really interesting magic stuff in it, but in terms of like attachment, she was the one that I was the least invested in. I really like her perspective now. I feel like she is going to be integral because of who she is, although I'm not going to disclose that to you because you got to read it to find out. But I feel like she has a big part to play in the political elements of this, and I also feel like she's one of the key players when it comes down to the fantastical elements of this. I think that this series is going to break down to a war on two fronts. We have the Jarls of this world who have started to consume the territories around them. So not long before the events of this book, there were lots of Jarls. There were lots of little towns. Each one had a Jarl. But with increasing threats from territories surrounding these areas, the Jarls have started to not band together, actually. They've just kind of started claiming all of the Jarldoms around them to make bigger territories so that they can better defend themselves from bigger powers around them. So we have royalty creeping into here as well. There is a queen. A lot of people don't think that there should be queens, that we should be dealing with Jarls, but there are a couple of powers in this world who have claimed quite large territories, and they're now kind of threatening each other, and the territories are feeling even more so that they need to band together to defend against each other. But then you also have the gods. A key part of the history of this world is that many years ago, there was a war between the gods, and they all ended up killing each other. And it's not even myth and legend in this world, it's more proven history, because all around them, they have the bones of the gods. There is one city in here that is actually built into the skeleton of the snake god, so they know this as fact that the gods did exist and walk amongst them. And it turns out throughout the course of this that those gods may not be as long gone and dead as people first anticipated as these series of events in here escalate. So I feel like the core plot of this is going to balance the war amongst the humans and the war amongst the gods, and how each of these areas controlled by humans are going to potentially side with the gods to help them with their war while also pledging themselves to the god war. So it's really interesting to see this kind of plotline slowly come together as we're following a bunch of different characters who all have a different role to play or are affiliated with different gods. Something that I've really enjoyed about this one actually is that we have been exploring some of the, shall we say, the homes of the gods. They're not quite houses, but historically in this world they are places where the gods are known to have been. Oh my god, Vish has just put in the chat that she's just finished the book with like a crying face, and I don't know whether it's like a tears of relief or a tears of the book made her emotional. So I'm a little bit worried, but it has been interesting seeing the modern perspective, the current timeline characters exploring these ancient places, because there are more gods than they are aware of. They know of the big ones, the prominent ones, but as the events of this series are unfolding, they're finding out that the extent of their knowledge regarding gods and magic is not actually as comprehensive as they believed it to be, and that is going to become a problem as these gods resurface in this timeline.
I heard that the hurricane took you away, laying out, and I got something for you. Not my heart, not my space, not my street, which you stay. There's no point without you, and I wanna leave.
Can I trust you? All these things that I know are the gone. Yeah, can we all just agree
yeah, I finished The Hunger of the Gods yesterday. I wrapped up sprints, went to get myself some dinner and have a couple of hours of no screen time before I had to jump back on live for the discussion for this book. And then afterwards, we ended up talking for an hour or so about possible options for the next round of Catch Up Book Club, which I'm just going to leave that there because we haven't decided anything yet. We do have a shortlist that we're trying to choose between, but we will be announcing the next series maybe August, because the live show for the final book in this series will be in July. So keep your eyes peeled for that if you're interested in joining in our discussions. We typically read epic fantasy series where the author has written more than one series set in the same world. And so if you have been procrastinating on picking up some of those long multiverses, expansive worlds, then we are the book club for you, because we are committed to getting through the damn thing, which is why it's hard to choose a series, because we're committing to the whole thing and some of them are quite extensive. Imagine if we didn't like The Realm of the Elderlings, that was 15 books. That would have been hell. It would have been like Wheel of Time along. But anyway, the good news is that I really enjoyed The Hunger of the Gods. Like I've been saying throughout this vlog, I enjoyed it more than I did the first book. I really appreciated getting deeper into the perspectives of characters like Varg and Elvar that I didn't feel like I connected to in the first book. And now going forward into book 3, I feel like I am a little bit more invested in their characters, which is nice because that's what I'm looking for in fantasy. Emotional investment, actually caring what happens to the characters. I really like the way that the gods are being integrated into this world, and I also really enjoyed the glimpses of the gods that we got. This is, as I've said, a little bit of a more magical series than the Banished Lands, but I feel like there are some elements of the magic that I don't love as much, like the, shall I say, particular circumstances of the majority of our main characters. That element of the magic I'm not as invested in as I am the gods themselves, and I feel like we got a lot of great moments surrounding that within these books, and I'm really interested, given the precedent that we set in this book, I'm really interested in what's going to happen in the final book in this series, because if they do what I think they're going to do, it is going to be catastrophic for this world. I don't know where the series is going to end yet, but I do really hope that John Gwynne goes along the lines of cautioning against the hubris of humanity. The humans are doing a lot of reckless things in this world for their own gain, and it's kind of counterproductive because what they're doing is going to have such severe consequences that the thing that they actually want is not going to be attainable by the time that they're done. And what I really would like to see is real consequences for the actions of the humans in here, given what they're doing. And I kind of want to see everything backfire on them because they're getting a little bit too big for their boots. But I really like how this kind of speaks on the superiority of humanity, or the perceived superiority, the attitude that humans have, that we have, for example, more right to the world than any other living creature on this planet. And I would like to see that backfire on the characters, or a lot of the characters in this book. As you probably saw, there was a couple of moments at the end of this that shocked me from a perspective that I wasn't expecting it to come from. I thought that the real moments of shock and high tension at the end of this book would come from some of the perspectives that I'm really attached to. And we do end this one on, I want to say, a note of uncertainty. I'm pretty sure I know how that's going to resolve in book 3. I'm not as concerned as maybe I should be at the end of book 2, but we did obviously have a couple of moments that genuinely took me by surprise, and I love that. I love it when a book takes me by surprise. It's literally my favorite thing. And I also find that moments like that in fantasy like this make me realize how invested I am, because I can go through a series and be like, okay, like I don't feel like I care that much about some of the people and the events of this world, and then something like that happens and it's like, okay, no, yeah, actually I am quite deeply invested. So I am very interested to see how the final book in this series wraps up. I'm pretty sure that this is the longest of the 3, with the final book being maybe just short of 100 pages smaller. This one we will be reading in July. The live show we have tentatively set, I think, for, it is the second Sunday in July, which I think is the 12th. But don't quote me on that. So if you guys are reading along, that is the date that we're kind of aiming for. And the live show for the Fury of the Gods will be on Vish's channel at this point. But do keep your eyes peeled for a more official announcement from me at the beginning of July. So in between my sprints and the Catch Up Book Club live show, I did finish the Off-Campus series on Prime. I have been watching it. I read The Deal a couple of years ago and I really enjoyed it. And then I followed it up with The Mistake last year. And I didn't have as much of a good time with that. I mean, it was fine, but I wasn't as invested in it as I was The Deal, which I was actually surprised by how much I really enjoyed that one. So I jumped on the opportunity of having a series come onto Prime where I've already read the book, and I really enjoyed the show. I don't think it is the best production-wise. I don't think that the acting was amazing from the two main characters. I think that the entire thing has Disney Channel production, and that last episode was like the end of High School Musical, or it was giving Camp Rock. Honestly, which, you know what, if that is their budget, if that is the level of their production, then that is fine. But I did have some secondhand embarrassment watching it. I did watch it with Curtis, who was more invested in it than I was, actually. But it definitely has a charm about it. It was very addictive. At the end of every episode, I just wanted to jump into the next one. And overall, I had a really good time with that. I'm really excited for season 2. I don't know whether they're going to go with the plot of The Mistake, I think is book 2, or The Score, because they actually included in the TV show a lot of the events of book 3, which I haven't read yet, but based on the couple that it involves, I know obviously that that's the material that they're pulling from. So it kind of makes sense for them to go into book 3 now, because I don't know how they're going to continue to drag that out throughout another series and then make that its entire series. But then they've also just cast the female main character for season 2, or the person who's going to be the love interest in Logan's season. Although I'm wondering if they're going to go with the plot line of The Score and then introduce the love interest for Logan's season like they have with season 1, and then do Logan's book is season 3, maybe. But because I have been enjoying the show so much, last night I did pick up The Score by Elle Kennedy, which is the 3rd book in the Off-Campus series. This one is Dean and Allie's book. Every book in this series follows a member of the hockey team. The first one's Garrett, the second one's Logan, the third one's Dean, and then book 4 is Tucker. So this one in particular is following, of course, Dean and Allie, who you see a lot of in season 1 of the show. And Allie is a serial monogamist. Her mother passed away, I'm not sure how long ago, prior to the start of the story, but when she was dying, she told Allie to never give up on love. And Allie has this long-term on-again, off-again boyfriend who honestly is a patronizing, belittling piece of shit. I'm not a fan of that man. And she breaks up with him, and they've been breaking up and getting back together for a long time, but she breaks up with him and she's like, no, I'm actually done with you. And she then starts sleeping with one of the hockey players, which is Dean. And she feels a lot of guilt about this because, you know, she loves or loved Sean, who is her ex, and her mother told her to never give up on love, and she feels like walking away from this relationship is giving up on love, even though, you know, he's definitely 100%. Even if Dean wasn't in the picture, this man is not the man for her. I can tell you that from the glimpse I've had of him in the TV show, and also 10% into the book. The text messages he's been sending her, I'm also not a fan of, and the way that she's talked about him. He deserves to be in the bin. So she starts sleeping with Dean, who is this massive fuckboy, and she really wants this casual, no-strings sex situation. But I think that they keep coming back to each other, and Dean ultimately starts to catch feelings. So this one I'm 10% into, and already it is a lot more sex forward than I typically prefer in my romance books. You guys know I love a slow burn. I want us to kind of build up to the spicy content, but obviously from the glimpse that I'd seen in the TV show, I knew that this was going to be more sex heavy, and I think that it's actually a really good job that I've started reading this after the show, because I already feel some of the chemistry between the characters, and also have gotten a little bit of their backstory from watching the show, that the smut doesn't feel so abrupt having it right at the beginning of the book, because I kind of knew it was going to be like that anyway. So I'm actually doing my 24-hour readathon with my patrons. It starts at 6 p.m. tonight. I'm not going to be going with the prompt or optional prompt this time, because I just want to kind of indulge in this mood read, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have the score done before the end of the 24 hours, and then we'll see what I'm moving on to, because my TBR has been neglected, and I'm pretty sure after this I'm going into shelve it or scrap it, so it's going to continue to be neglected. So maybe it would be a good idea if I picked something off there. So I literally just finished filming that clip, and I picked up my phone for a little procrastination scroll before I film, and I discovered that Dean and Allie have been confirmed for season 2. So that is the direction that they're going in, and I'm assuming that they're going to kind of introduce Grace into season 2 to set up Logan's book like they have with Dean and Allie in season 1. So I am 30% of the way into the score and I'm having a good time with it. I'm not sure if this is going to be my favorite in the series because the deal, for some reason, just really, really worked for me at the time that I read it and it has a really special place in my heart. But I'm optimistic. I really enjoy Ali and Dean's chemistry. My only issue at the minute is that we're spending a lot of time in their individual perspectives in separate locations and I really like their banter when they come together. So I would like to see more of them in the same place, in the same scenes, but obviously I imagine that that will come with time because this is ultimately a romance. But the reason why I'm checking in with you guys is because we've just rolled a double on sprints, and if you have never joined me for Patreon sprints, first of all, what are you doing? But secondly, if you don't know what that means, I use 2 6-sided dice to decide how long the sprint is going to be, and I roll them at the beginning of every sprint. So every dot on the dice represents 5 minutes. If you roll, for example, a 5, it's a 25-minute sprint. But if you roll a double, you have to change books. Now, sometimes myself and my patrons, we ignore this rule and just carry on with what we're doing. But this is a little bit of a mood read. It wasn't on my TBR and my TBR has been neglected. So I was like, you know what? Let's swap. As much as I would like to continue binging through the score, maybe making a little dent in my TBR is not the worst idea in the world. So I am picking up another book on Kindle Unlimited. This is the final book for my current round of my Patreon book club, which is the Alpha Ho book club, and I will be reading Shadow and Storms by Helen Shora, which is the final book in the Legends of Thesmar series. So I have had an interesting relationship with this series. I think without the accountability of the book club, I maybe wouldn't have continued past book 2 because I really enjoyed book 1, didn't love book 2 or the spin-off standalone so much, and I did enjoy book 3, but at this point in the series, I kind of want to have a little bit more emotional investment. But going into book 4, I'm kind of optimistic about this one. I am hoping that the stakes are going to be high. I'm hoping for a really great conclusion to this series. But if you guys don't know what this one is about, it is a romantasy series following a young woman who wants to become one of the legendary warriors of Thesmar. But there is a prophecy in this world that states that the Daughter of Darkness, who is this like mysterious girl wielding a blade, is going to bring about the end of days. So to avoid this prophecy being fulfilled, they stop all women from becoming warriors. Women can't train anymore. Our main character, however, does manage to find herself a loophole which allows her entry into this warrior academy where she is thrown in amongst all of these very sexist male warriors in training, and it also puts her into the path of the warriors of Thesmar themselves, including the most isolated and grumpy of the warriors, which is Wilder Hawthorne. And if you have been interested in joining my Patreon book club, we are currently voting for our next series, which I need to double check the poll, but I am going to be announcing it tomorrow on my Patreon what we're going to be reading, and I'm pretty sure that the winner is the Kindred's Curse saga by Penn Cole, which is a series I've heard amazing things about. I am a little bit dubious when it comes to hype surrounding romance and romantasy books, but I'm optimistic about this one, and the long-awaited final book I'm pretty sure is being released in a couple of months, so our read-along should line up with the series being completed. But I'm going to go ahead and get myself stuck into Shadow and Storms for the next 40-ish minutes, and then after that I'll be switching back over to the score, probably, if I'm being honest. So I am 50% of the way into the score and I'm having a good time with it. I'm enjoying it probably a little bit more than I did The Mistake, but less than The Deal, I think, because that one just really worked for me at the time that I read it. But these are very quick reads for me, very unserious reads. I'm obviously riding the high of finishing the off-campus TV show right now, and this is also a perfect time for me to read a book like this because I think they're great palate cleansers, and I've read so much epic fantasy recently. Although, to be honest, I do feel like for some reason I'm in a little bit of a contemporary romance mood. Carly Fortune is staring at me on my TBR card. I am severely tempted to pick one of Carly Fortune's books up sometime soon. I got my eye on them. But in terms of the score, Ali's off the back of this serious relationship. She's kind of convinced herself that she can handle a fling. Dean is this notorious fuckboy, and for some reason, when he meets Ali, it just kind of clicks and he can't sleep around anymore. Like, nobody is doing it for him the way that Ali is, but she does not believe in casual sex, and so he keeps trying to hook up with her again, and she's having none of it until she gets to this point where she convinces herself that, yeah, like, she can do the casual thing, and her and Dean embark upon this fling. Now, we all know where this is going to end, but because this is a relationship that builds upon this casual hookup that they have, we obviously have smut from very, very early on in the book. Now, because I have seen the show and it's warmed me up to their characters, I'm not minding it as much as I think I would if I'd have gone into this book without the context of the show, just given the fact that I am somebody who really does prefer a slow burn. Like, if the smut comes too early in the book, I cannot connect to it at all, and I really don't care. So having seen the show, the smut in here is not as tedious to me as it would be otherwise, but I don't think that this is going to be my favorite book in the series. I'm just such a Garrett stan, and I don't know why. In the show, I'm definitely a Logan stan. It's all in the hair for me, honestly, but in the books, I don't know if anyone's going to top Garrett Graham for me, but I do think if anyone's going to come close, it could be Dean. I have realized recently as well, actually, that they've taken this series off Kindle Unlimited. It's been on there for literally years, and they've taken it off, obviously, because of the success of the show, and people are more willing to buy the books now, but I'm mad because I didn't get the indies of these. I have the indie copy of book one, and I'm pretty sure it's signed and personalized, because I'm sure I met Elle Kennedy at Rare, and I was going to get the full set. And when I read the deal, I saw them on Vinted, very, very reasonably priced considering the indie copies were out of print. And I was like, you know what? No, they're all on Kindle Unlimited. It's not a series that I feel like I need to own the physical copies of. Now they've taken them off KU. And if I buy the physical copies, like the indies on Vinted have obviously skyrocketed. The works have run out of box sets of the new covers, like the trad pub covers. So if I want to continue this series, I'm gonna have to wait for like 99p Kindle deals. Maybe actually, but that's gonna be really long. I was gonna say maybe jump on the library queue on Libby for book 4, because I really just don't want to buy the trad pub books just for the sake, because I just don't feel like I'm going to want to keep them. But the Kindle copies, actually, they're not reasonably priced. They're not like a £2.99 Kindle. They're like £7.50, which I feel like is wild for a series that's been on KU for years. I obviously understand why they've done it, so I'm not like super pressed about it. It just has obviously inconvenienced me because that's how I was consuming this series. And the frustrating thing as well is that the part of the series that I'm up to, like, I'm not super enthusiastic about Tucker's book. So who knows when I'm actually going to finish this series. To be fair, it takes me a long time to circle around to being in the mood for this specific type of romance anyway, because I normally like something a little bit extra with my romance, which is why Carly Fortune is really appealing to me right now, because I feel like they're going to be more contemporaries with a strong romance presence as opposed to being like a more straightforward romance. So maybe by the time I cycle around to Tucker's book, they'll be back on KU.
She was doing fine and I was doing right, falling into daydreams of our lives. I tried my best to hide feelings deep inside, starstruck in those eyes. I didn't think she knew my existence.
Last night, I finished the score, and the end of that book was a roller coaster. I did not foresee any of the events that unfolded in the last, I want to say, maybe 25%. I'm pretty sure it was more in the last 20% mark that things started to go south in a way that I did not predict. I am actually really concerned, though, about the next season of the show based on the information that I discovered in that book. I just feel like it's going to be emotional, and I don't know know if I'm ready. I did not have getting this invested in off campus on my 2026 bingo card. I mean, what can I say? I'm just a girl. And I had a good time with this one. I ended up giving it a high 3-star rating. I was definitely more invested in it than I was The Mistake. Not quite as much as The Deal, which I think I gave 4 stars to. I don't know whether I was just feeling a certain type of way when I read The Deal. I really enjoy the Elle Kennedy books that I've read so far for their readability. I, for the most part, really enjoy the tension between the characters. And I do find that her books can contain some more sensitive topics, but I feel like she handles them reasonably well. And you know, when the romance really got going in this one, it really did hook me, and I was won over by Dean and Ali. So far in my off-campus rating, we still have The Deal at the top, then The Score, and then The Mistake. But now that we've had that little detour, that little segue into something fun and easy, it is time to get back onto TBR. So I am diving back into the 4th book in the Legends of Thesmar, which I cannot get the words of this book in the right order. I think it's called Shadow and Storms, or Storm and Shadows. I went backwards and forwards over the 24-hour readathon with my patrons, calling it every which way. Like, I cannot remember, but it's something along those lines. And I'm currently, I think, about 15% into it. I read another like 5% this morning. We are accelerating the plot quite quickly where I'm up to, which does make sense because we're in the final book of this series. I'm bracing myself for this one, guys, because I do feel like it's obviously, if I'm bracing myself for it, that it's not necessarily going to take me by surprise, but I think it's going to go in a direction that I did not expect it to until around the end of book 3. So we'll see how this one unfolds. I am immersion reading this one as well. I have been doing that a lot, as I've already mentioned in this vlog. This one in particular I am listening to on BookBeat, which I am also an affiliate for. So if you guys don't know about BookBeat, they are a UK based audiobook service. They work kind of like Spotify on an hours basis as opposed to like a book basis. So depending on what tier you're on, you get a certain amount of hours to listen to audiobooks per month. And their selection is actually pretty decent. I made a list recently because I was just scrolling through BookBeat and I love just like sorting and organizing things. So I made a list on there of a bunch of books that they have available that I also have on my TBR so that I can kind of scroll through it if I'm looking for something that I want to listen to on audiobook from my actual TBR instead of going off TBR, which I tend to do quite frequently. So if you guys are in the UK, I think you have to have a UK payment method for BookBeat. But if you do have one of those and you would like to try out BookBeat for yourself, they do have quite generous trial offers. So if you guys wanted to check it out, I do have an affiliate code, which is BeccaBum, and that gives you an extended free trial of, I think, 45 days at the moment to listen to as many audiobooks as you would like to within your monthly hours. Actually, because it is romantasy, I don't like to listen to romantasy or romance in audio. It icks me out a little bit, but I have been dipping in between listening to little bits of this on audio and then coming back and immersion reading it so that I can get some just like bits done around the house whilst also making progress in my book. This one is, as I've already said, the final book for this round of my Patreon book club, and I will also be making a spoiler video for it, which I will be posting on Patreon next week. So I need to kind of get that off the ground as well. And then this afternoon, the weather's like gone really overcast, like it's going to rain again. This is not the weather for the end of May, guys. We're supposed to have a really nice weekend, which honestly I hope we do, because I'm going to Slam Dunk and I don't think I've ever been to a Slam Dunk where the weather is good. So I really, really would like one sunny Slam Dunk, please. But yeah, it's gone really overcast, so I might make myself a cup of tea and settle myself on the couch with my book.
Wondering where she gone, falling further on. Don't wanna stay, don't wanna play, princess don't fade, 'cause one day you'll be mine.
I started today with some pretty grand plans. I did go for a run this morning. I did definitely accomplish that first thing this morning. I've started a new running program on Peloton because I started running in 2024 and I've never been a great runner, but I got up to like 30 minutes of solid running endurance pace, which ain't too bad for somebody who once said that they would never run because they just ain't built for it. But I did the damn thing. However, last summer I injured my foot. It's hard for me to motivate myself to run because I don't run on the treadmill. I run outside in like winter when it's icy and it's cold and I don't want to go and it's dark. And also end of last year was a write-off for me. So I've got to a point now again where I can't run. I can't even do like 3 or 4 minutes running. All of my stamina is gone. So I'm starting again from scratch to build up to running 5K with this Peloton program in like 6 to 8 weeks. I can't remember which one it is. So I did go for my run this morning and I got myself ready and I went into Scarborough to have coffee with a friend, but I really expected to be back early afternoon. I was going to do some filming and then finish my book. However, coffee with a friend turned into coffee and then lunch with a friend, and then that turned into coffee and then lunch and then book shopping with a friend, and then I got home at like 5:30 and hopped straight into Patreon reading sprints with Sandra. So the day has gotten away from me. I have not finished my book yet and I have like 43% left, so it's debatable whether that's going to get done tonight. What I do have for you guys is a book haul, and you can actually probably already tell from these sprayed edges what I picked up. So we actually found this gem of a bookshop. If you guys are in the Scarborough area, I would definitely recommend checking out Mrs. Lofthouse's Emporium. It is a secondhand bookshop, but they have a ton of special editions in there for quite reasonable prices. I obviously didn't price check everything, but a lot of them were under retail for like sprayed edge special editions. They had broken binding sets in there. They had Fairloop books, Lumicray, Waterstones edition printed edge kind of stuff. And the selection was amazing. They had a very, very big fantasy selection, which, you know, always great. So I did end up picking up Times Convert by Deborah Harkness. Now, it is a secondhand bookstore, but they do have some new stuff in there as well. This one is a new paperback. It says in the front that it's new. £5. Can't beat that. This one is the 4th book in the All Souls series by Deborah Harkness. I really liked that trilogy when I read it, which in terms of that being a romance, because it's like a vampire witch romance, it's very Twilight for adults. It hits a lot of the same story beats as Twilight, which is probably one of the reasons why I ate it up, especially book 1. But the reason why I actually really like this series is that I really love Deborah Harkness's writing. She is a historian and there's some time travel in this series, which I really think for her was an opportunity to explore her special interest, and I think that she got like quite indulgent with that book. But because of that, I think it makes her books, even though they're fantasy like paranormal, feel a lot more plausible and grounded, because a lot of the historical elements are like very well fleshed out and somewhat accurate, as opposed to just being there mainly for aesthetics. So I did finish the original trilogy. I don't think it was last year. I think it might have been the year before. And that in itself is a self-contained story, even though the series does go on. So this one is following Marcus, who is one of the side characters in the core trilogy, and also one of Matthew's vampire children. And we find out throughout the course of the series, this isn't really a spoiler, but he becomes attached to a human woman. And I believe that this focuses on them and their relationship. I think there's at least one more book in this series after this one. I don't know whether we continue to follow Marcus though. I think actually that we go back to Matthew and Diana at some point with a true continuation of the series, but I know that this one at least for sure is following Marcus. So I felt okay taking a break where I did, but I actually am really eager to get back into this one because of how much I like Deborah Harkness's writing. I've been dipping in and out of there recently because I've been looking for the edition of Nightshade that has the characters sprayed on the edges, and one of my lovely subscribers, Claire, who I've known for a very, very long time, actually messaged me and was like, hey, I have that copy if you want it. So that should be arriving very soon. Thank you so much, Claire. But when I've been dipping into the works, I've noticed that they've reprinted their editions of First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I have heard nothing but amazing things about this, and I've been thinking about picking it up, but seeing as they reprinted the sprayed edge edition, I was like, just go get it. Just go get it. And G from Book Roast gave this a glowing review recently, which means that I have to try it out because G is pretty hard to impress. I only know that this one is obviously a contemporary romance and that it is following a host of a romance hotline on a radio station, and the female main character, I think, is somebody who calls in asking for advice. And seeing as I've heard only amazing things about this, I thought I may as well pick up And Now Back to You, because if I do end up loving First Time Caller like everybody else in the world, I am massively going to regret not picking up the Works edition version of And Now Back to You. This one, I'm pretty sure, follows two meteorologists. It's called the Heartstrings series, I think. And I'm pretty sure Heartstrings, yes, is the name of the romance hotline, like the radio program. So I'm not sure how And Now Back to You with the meteorologists connects, unless they're radio meteorologists. But overall, I've just heard really good things about these specific books from B.K. Barrison. They're an author that I have wanted to look into because I have heard such good things, but these apparently are the ones to read. So I'm really glad that I just bit the bullet and picked these up. In terms of reading though, I'm 57% of the way into Storm and Shadows, and I'll be honest guys, I don't really have a whole ton to tell you about this series at this point. We are right in the thick of it now. The point that I paused this morning is where we're about to dive into the action. So I'm expecting at least a couple of casualties. Don't know what's going to happen to our main characters. I'm really hoping for a dynamic ending to this one. I just don't know if we're going to get that. My hopes are not especially high. This series I would recommend to people who really like romantasy and just eat up all of the romantasy that they can get their hands on. If you're looking for a standout 5-star phenomenal series in the genre, I wouldn't say that this is it, but if you are an avid romantasy reader, then I would say it's like a fairly solid one. I don't like the male audio narrator growling in my ears, I can tell you that. And I will say about this series, it has an amazing cast of side characters, and I really think that they add a lot of value to the series. Cal and Kip especially, my favorite characters consistently throughout this entire series. It's one of those where, like, if I'm just looking to passively read and enjoy something, then this is a great series to pick up. But if I'm looking to actually get heavily invested, this isn't kind of consuming me in that way. I am in a bit of a pickle though, because I do have the first book in the spin-off series, and considering I had book 1 and I was enjoying the beginning of this series, I have also ordered the Fairy Loot editions of book 2 and 3 of that one. I have heard really good things about the spin-off series though, but I'm at least invested enough in it to kind of care about how it wraps up, and I really hope that we have some high stakes, like believable high stakes moment in the end of this one where I'm kind of like on the edge of my seat, but who knows? I stayed up so late last night after sprints talking to Sandra that I have had very little sleep, and I have a headache because I've had very little sleep. And I also didn't manage to finish my book yesterday, so I finished it off this morning, and I actually really liked the way that this series came to a close. There were a number of things that took me by surprise, like we had some really good plot reveals in here. I think partially because at some point throughout this series I stopped paying close attention and really thinking about this series. I was talking about this on Sprints last night. Actually, I love to read a book that makes me think. Like, I don't want the author to give me everything because I want to be thinking about what's going to happen next. And I find that when I have that level of engagement with the text, then I'm more invested, the book is more memorable to me, and I tend to think upon it more favorably. Even if I don't like the outcome of the book, like if it's something like a mystery or a thriller and I don't like the way it ends, I still think about it a lot because of how engaging I found it. And I think somewhere along the way of this series, like probably in book 2, I stopped being so engaged, which worked out in my favor in the end because all of these things came out of the woodwork that were completely plausible but also completely took me by surprise, and I love to be taken by surprise, if I'm being honest. I also do still maintain that there is a level of safety and surety within this series because it is romantasy and we tend to fall more into the conventions of the romance genre, with some characters having like some degree of plot armor. But I do think that Helen Shura did a good job of giving us some casualties of war. I think the way that that played out, I actually called it towards the end of book 3 what was maybe going to happen in that regard. So I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I do feel like it was executed in quite an emotive way. Actually, I didn't cry like at all throughout this book. I am just a little disappointed that it was right at the end of this series that it really shone. Like, I think the thing that we built up to was very well executed, and I actually loved the last 15 to 20% of this book. I still maintain that this series is a relatively strong one. It's not one that's like blown me away at all on any front really, but I do think it's one that is in line with popular romantasy. It has a lot of commonalities, but it's not one that rips off any popular romantasy. So I am glad that I read this one. I do want to go into the spin-off series because I've heard really good things about Ren's series. I don't know whether I'm going to commit to the entire thing though. We will see, because parts of this series just felt like me trying to get through it because it was a book club book. And I do think without the accountability of the book club, I would have left this series behind after book 2 or after the standalone, but it does improve. Book 3 and book 4 are so much better than book 2. So I am glad that I continued in that regard, but I also do think this is a series that if I'd have never read it, I would be fine. Like, I don't feel like I would have missed anything. But that concludes this week's vlog, which, guys, have you seen how much I've read this week? I know we did run like half a day over because I didn't manage to finish Shadows and Storms. I still don't know what this book is called. Whatever it is. I didn't manage to finish it yesterday, but I read The Hunger of the Gods in its entirety. That one's over 600 pages. I then read The Score, which I think was about 350 pages, maybe closer to 400, and then a 450 page romancy to round us out, all within 1 week. Who am I? Who is she? I have actually been really able to lock in recently because I've been immersion reading, and what that does to me really is just keep me on track. This should have been sponsored by some sort of like audiobook service, because it's what I discovered when I did that video, which was like implementing your guys' focus tips to try and read more. Immersion reading was one that was really successful for me that I said I was going to continue on with, and life happened. I got a little undisciplined, a little derailed, but I'm back at it now, and it does work because essentially it stops me every time I have a thought outside of my book. It reminds me to look back at my book and continue reading, because my issue is that like I'm so distracted. Like I read a chapter, I get up, I do something, I daydream, I scroll through my phone, and if I stay on track, I read obviously so much better, and that's all I really want. I just want to, because I'm typically sitting down reading for an hour and reading like 20 pages and then getting frustrated that I don't read very fast, whereas if I'm immersion reading, I sit down for an hour and I actually read for an entire hour instead of just dilly-dallying. So yeah, I'm really happy with the progress that we made this week. All sequels as well, which is great because it takes me ages to cycle around to sequels, and that is definitely an area of my reading that needs a lot of work. So I'm very happy with the progress that we've made this week. The next vlog that you guys are going to see on my channel should hopefully be the next episode of Shelved or Scrap It. I have filmed the first clip for that today, so I have selected my first book, and we're going back to basics with that. We're using a random number generator to select the book, so I'm really excited about the spontaneity of having no idea what I'm going to be reading next, and that I think as well will put a little zip in my reading. So stay tuned for that if you are at all interested. But aside from that, guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're a go when nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.